And so today's conversation is actually titled, Our Intersectionalities. Are you leveraging your authentic self? And before I bring our incredible women to the stage, I wanted to share a little bit about the term intersectionality. So for some of you, this may be a new term. For a lot of us, we've actually heard of this term a little bit more frequently, I'd say over the past 5 years. The term intersectionality was also coined in 1989, right? A long time ago, by a university professor by the name of Kimberlé Crenshaw. So if you have an opportunity, Google Kimberlé Crenshaw, Google intersectionalities, and you'll start to learn how intersectionality plays out in the workplace as well as your personal life. Intersectionality means that all of the layers of our identity that we carry actually help us or challenge us. It means that someone like me, an immigrant from Dominican Republic, who is a millennial, bilingual, growing up in New York City, how those layers of identity impact my experience at work and how it's a very different lived experience than, let's say, an American woman, a white woman who was born here in the United States. Those layers of intersectionality is race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, all of those things that we carry and we bring to the table at work challenge us. And it's being aware of our intersectionalities and then turning those into opportunities to be able to say, wait, I can take on that assignment in Buenos Aires. I speak Spanish. Wait, I can actually interact with that community. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. It's about cultural intelligence. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about making sure that we're aware of everything that we bring to the table, and we're very proud to wear it on our sleeves. It's not a hindrance, but an add-on. It's adding to the culture of your organization so that we can change the conversation. Now I'd love to welcome to the stage both of my panelists. One, her name is Ámaly Homer from Marsh McLennan. Please welcome her to the stage. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ámaly, for being here. Dominicana, Puertorriqueña. Fantastic. And next is Ximena Delgado from Bank of America. Welcome her to the stage. Ximena, colombiana.
Que viva Colombia.
Colombiana. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your careers, your personal self, and what we can't read in the bios that we have in your Bizzabo app. So remember, add them on LinkedIn. As we're having this conversation, read their corporate bio, but I want this to be a very intimate conversation, something that they necessarily can't put in a corporate bio. Tell us a little bit more about your family, Ximena.
Oh, you would start with me. Well, let's see. I've been with the company. I'm with Bank of America for 25 years. I think I started fairly young. I was 30. Something that is not on my bio, let's see, born and raised in Colombia, South America. I came to this country when I was 12. My mom actually left the country looking for better. She was actually running away from my father. So there's that story there that you don't see on my bio. We moved from Colombia to a very small town in California. And so that was a big cultural shock. Fast forward, moved around quite a bit, went to University of California, Berkeley, graduated, then did my master's in New York, came back to San Francisco, where I did a few jobs in public policy, which was my training, and my significant other at that time actually followed from New York. So I fell in love with a woman who is a New Yorker. She's Haitian. And, we've been together now for over 28 years. We were married 3 times. Yes, 3 times getting married to the same person. The last one, which was
That's a whole other story I want to hear.
Yeah.
really want to dig
Yeah, I know, right? So the legitimate, I guess, wedding was when I was yay pregnant. I guess 3 days before giving birth, I got the real papers that we were married as two women in California. And so that is, yeah, that was something. So I've been with the company for 25 years, always in San Francisco. I did local marketing where I managed the philanthropy and the corporate giving within the San Francisco Bay Area. But as of 11 years ago, I've been with the Bank of America Charitable Foundation, where I lead our summer youth employment piece. I do some Native American intersectionality as well, and do other things, but I'll leave it at that.
I love that. Thank you, Ximena. Amaly, tell us a little bit about your family, yourself, and your career. You've also been with Marsh McLennan over 20 years.
Yes, yes. Hi, everyone, and I'm so excited to be here today, Jai, with you, finally in person, and my first time here at the summit, and certainly in person, which I think we all needed so much, so to have these experiences. But I can't follow you, Ximena. I mean, that's quite a story, in terms of what makes you you, your intersectionalities. But I will say high level, I'm a Latina, I'm an Afro-Latina. I'm Dominican and Puerto Rican, as Jai said, woo, for the Dominicanos in the room and the Puerto Ricans in the room. And I'm bummed that I don't have a fan club like you do here, but hopefully all of you guys will be all of our fans, at the end of this segment. But I'm a mom. I have 2 boys, 3 if you include my husband, and I definitely include him. So my oldest is 18, and my youngest is going to be turning 13, so I have 2 teenagers. And so that's in and of itself. I heard somebody mentioned during one of the prior segments of, I am so excited to be raising boys because I really do want to raise amazing boys. And so hopefully through my experiences and some of the things that we'll talk about today, you guys will get to see some of those elements actually, through some of the stories that I'll be telling. I'm a runner, so I started running about 5 years ago. I work in a corporate environment, have been in a corporate environment for 22 years, and that entire period I wore my hair straight. And that's one of the things that comes up a lot in conversations I have, particularly in terms of intersectionality, being Afro-Latina. Your hair comes up as a big topic. And, I, in corporate America, felt like I didn't need that, I can show up authentically, but I didn't want that extra attention on my hair. And I wanted to somewhat blend in and make it easier for me to succeed. And then I started running, and I realized it's really hard to straighten my hair all the time, especially if you're running every other day. And so I started to wear my hair curly. And I started to kind of take advantage of the fact that I could do both straight and curly in whatever style and still be respected. And certainly it took the journey of the 16, 17 years that I wore my hair straight to be able to get there. But, so I get to rock, I get to rock the curls now more often because I run. I just ran my 5th, I think, half marathon last weekend in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And that was an awesome experience. It was a night race, so it was really interesting. And yeah, I've been lucky to be in an organization for 22 years. I've served in various capacities, strategic and leadership capacities. I've done everything, client representation work. I've worked in the private equity and M&A space. I've done sales and marketing. I've done executive leadership support work. I actually had the benefit of being the chief of staff in our organization, we're a 150-year-old organization, and we've only had one Black Latinx CEO in its history, and I got to be his chief of staff. And he's Dominican, so it was like a proud moment for me as a Dominicana to serve in that capacity. I did that for 3 years. I've done product management. And then I stepped into the D&I space. So I've only been doing D&I for a year and a half. And it's a unique thing because I'm doing it officially now, so it's a paid gig. But historically, I've always supported the resource group community. So I've led the OLA resource group at Marsh, and I've also led the racial and ethnic diversity research group at Mercer. Those are two of our leading businesses within the Marsh McLennan family. So I've gotten a lot of really amazing opportunities, working in the corporate space, and have been able to show up even though I'm usually the only person that looks like me in the room, or sometimes the only female in the room. So just imagine, I'm Afro-Latina in the middle of like a room filled with white men mostly, and to have had the tenure and the success in my career, I feel really proud. I'm humbled every day because I think about when I first came into this country, like you, Ximena. So I came to the country. I lived in DR with my family, and I was 9 when I first came to the States. So I didn't know the language. But, and I also came by myself. My family, because I was born in Puerto Rico, I was a citizen here, and I had family here that said, send her here, she'll have better education, and we'll get everybody else to come later. And I said, and my mom asked me, she goes, do you want to go? This is you'll be traveling with a friend, and you're going to be by yourself, and I'm not going to be with you. And I said, heck yes, because growing up in DR, that's all you talked about was being in the States. There was better opportunity, better schools, and that's a little bit of who I am. It's this kind of like fearless, I want the success, I want the opportunity, I want to do better, not just for me, but for my family and for the future gen. And I don't know how I was thinking that at age 9, but that's what inspires me and drives me. I think that's a lot of interwoven in my career trajectory, in that I've done a lot of different things that have been outside my core, and I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess is kind of how I see it, which is a lot of also, there's a lot of connectivity to intersectionality as a result, right? Because you are representing all these different layers of who you are, you have an opportunity to see that in others and help others show up in the same way. And I think, again, I think some of the experiences that you guys just mentioned, and what you were mentioning on stage, I think that shows up in everything that we do. And so that's been certainly valuable for me in my career trajectory and in life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and for being so transparent. Ximena, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your role. You manage ESG, environmental, social, and governance for Bank of America. Tell us a little bit about ways in which your intersectionalities, your family life, your wife, how all of that plays into your role at Bank of America. How any one of those layers of your personality, of your skill set, of your background and experience has helped you at Bank of America.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think about my 25 years with a company that has made it a very welcoming environment, and in bringing myself, my authentic self, to the company. It is so part of me to be a woman, to be an immigrant, to be a mother, that is sort of, I can't divorce myself from that, right? So it's very intrinsic in me to do and to view things probably different than my next door colleague or my colleagues across the country, right? And so I bring my experience as an immigrant to help communities that are under-resourced, that are at risk. When I think about the work of our summer youth employment program, we're impacting millions of kids that are low income, that are BIPOC, that we're providing a first job experience in high school so that they could then see themselves, right, in some of us, so that they can then go back to their homes, go back to school and say, I can do this. I can be a part of this nonprofit. I can be a part of corporate America. And so for me, it's sort of seamless being who I am, and that shows up in my work. So when I was thinking of, after finishing up my undergraduate, it's like, what do I do now? And I thought I wanted to go into policy, and I got to do policy for a whole year. This is a story, maybe a sidetrack story here, but it just shows you why I am who I am. So that first year, I was with a county supervisor and I got to do policy, which is amazing for some of you that have studied policy. To be able to impact socially in that way is pretty amazing. But I was very closeted. It wasn't me. So I spent the whole year sort of hiding and not truly giving it 100% to that work. And so, I spent the weekends with my partner at that time, with my wife to be, and I would come in on Monday and they would ask, oh, so how was your weekend, right? And I'd be like, oh, that's fine. Or they would want to know a little bit more, and during the pronoun game where, oh yeah, we had a great time, never saying she, right? Because, they would find out. And I swore that after that year, it was very suffocating. Like I was dying inside. Like I couldn't do that anymore. And so I've been very deliberate, very intentional on my second and my third job at Bank of America, never to do that. And so who I am sort of permeates into the portfolios that I impact. And that's what I wanted to do.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And something that I noticed from your bio is the fact that you do talk about your wife and your family. There are so many people, I receive their executive bios and they leave out so much of who they are because they think they should only put what's most professional and acceptable on an executive bio. And so when I received yours, I was like, she's real. Hello, like, she's a lesbian. Can we just tell everyone? Like, she's been telling everyone for 30 years, like, it's okay. And so I love that.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm like, when you pointed that out, I'm like, but that's so natural. That's like, right? And if somebody has a problem, it's their problem. It's not my problem.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I love that you've been so comfortable for so many years being able to do that. I mean, we have so many young children still trying to figure out how to come out or how to have those conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very different world that we're living in. Now you see and hear of it so much more, but 30 years ago,
right. Yeah.
when you were going through this, working in policy, I'm sure was really challenging for you personally.
It really was. And that was my quest in finding work that would allow me to be who I am. And joining the bank 25 years ago, it was never really questioned. Even back then when, I think we were the first company actually to provide domestic partnership benefits, which is amazing. We were probably the first company to provide gender affirmation benefits. So, it's like we're out there, and I thought, well, if these people want to do that and stand for that, why can't I just be myself? So that has never been a question. And I don't think I'm the only one that has, LGBT piece of it in their resume. I would like to see more Latina lesbians out there. So if you're out there, do come out because, please, and especially in the C-suite and in level executives, it would be nice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I read a lot of research about the LGBTQ community and the fact that we're seeing a lot more trans and queer and non-binary, but we can't find a lot of executives who identify as such. And I'm like, well, of course they're out there. Yeah. They just aren't ready to come out because they've been closeted for so long.
Yeah.
And they've built a personal and professional brand over 30 plus years that they don't know how to recreate.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't say it, but I am a mother. Our firstborn, my wife had our firstborn. He is a sophomore in college. And so, raising boys, he's an Afro-Latino, actually. And my daughter, so I had our daughter, and she's a high schooler, a freshman. And, we have these type of conversations. Be who you want to be. Yeah, so you want to be a lesbian one day and you want to be bi the next. That's fine. Be who you want to be and have these conversations. So one of their cousins is actually going through the transition. And the whole family's like, oh, did you hear, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, let's have a conversation about that. Because if you don't have that conversation, it's always going to be taboo. Let it be okay. and let it be okay with the child that, you know, is ready to be who they are. Let it be okay. And I think with the next generation, I think we're going to be much, much better.
I know we are. Thank you for sharing that. Ámaly, I want to talk a little bit about your hair. I want to talk about your curls. You mentioned that you spent a really good amount of your workplace sort of experience for 17 years straightening out your very beautiful curly hair. You know, we talk a lot about emotional tax that women of color feel. When you show up to work, you have so many layers of identity. You can't fully commit to just doing your job. You're so worried about feeling like the other. You're so worried about being judged because you just walked in with curly hair and being, you know, assumed that you're Tanisha from the other department. That happens so much. Tell us a little bit about how you're creating a more psychologically safer space for your colleagues to work, because I'm sure there are so many younger women that look up to you at Marsh McLennan that say, wow, Amaly's been here for over 20 years. She's successful and she looks like that. She looks normal, like me. I don't have to look like John in a boring white button down with a gray suit and pearl earrings, right? So how are you starting to have that conversation? I know you have a podcast, but how are you doing that internally at Marsh McLennan for other Latinas and women of color?
So I think for me, it comes down to so many different things, but you know, I want to show up authentically because I want my kids to be proud of me. Like, it's legacy a little bit for me. And I've always been in touch with my roots, my cultural roots. You know, I feel like I'm a Latina first because, you know, I grew up and have been raised with a Latino context, you know, in mind. And as I've gotten older, I have become more appreciative of the multi-layers that make up Latino cultures. I mean, just think about it. I feel like we're the pilot for what success should look like across the world in terms of how we should all come together, you know, as a unified front. The Latino community represents almost all races and ethnicities, if you think about it, right? You know, indigenous, Afrocentric, you know, Asian, you know, we represent all ethnicities and races, and I think what unifies us is this deep appreciation for our culture, our music, our food, so good. And I love to dance my salsa and my merengue. Like, all these things bring us together, and so I've been able to kind of latch onto that, you know. And I also was raised by a single mom, and so I think a lot of what I see and saw in her growing up, this like independent, she's the first one of 13 brothers and sisters to go to college and get her degree. She's the first one to travel outside of the DR, you know, based on just, you know, exposure that she would get through her professional and educational experiences. So I had this amazing role model who, for me, was a role model, but I was her role model to her, and so she always made me feel really amazing and confident. And so I think all of those things I've been able to bring to the work environment, even though there are microaggressions. You know, the first time I wore my hair curly in the office, this woman said to me, "You look crazy. Are you okay?" And I was like, "I thought I looked cute today. What happened?" You know, because she had been used to seeing me with straight hair and you know, polished and in this conservative way. And so those things really, you know, I would take those away and just said, I can't do it. So it really kind of made up my mind of, I'll just keep it straight, and on the weekends or when I'm on vacation, I'll wear it curly. You know, again, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more accustomed to appreciating my identity in a more profound way. And I think the one point in time that I really had this like aha moment, I was working in the health business. I managed a retiree healthcare exchange for the organization. Again, a job that was completely out of my, you know, comfort zone, but a white woman, white female leader, became an ally and gave me an opportunity to do this job and help turn this business around. But mind you, like literally nobody that looked like me in this organization, this business. So I would come into the work, I would get into my office, I'd be on conference calls, and I would leave. And there's this young lady that would sit outside my cubicle, and she was a Latina. I mean, her name is Tatiana Rivera. Shout out to Tatiana. So I knew she was Latina. But she never showed up that way in the office. So eventually I would go by and I'd say, hey, oh, your hair looks good today, you know, or what are you using for your curls? I just want to, you know, and so we became friends. And, but she was always very polished. There was like the Latin part didn't really come through all the time. And I had to ask her, are you Latina? And she's like, yeah, I'm Colombian and Mexican, and, you know, and anyway, so we would just kind of move past it. And then an opportunity with USED came up it was a Rising Professionals program. I don't remember the name of it at the time, but Sid said, hey, I have these two tickets for folks from your organization to attend this, you know, this conference. And I picked Tatiana, and Tatiana went and changed her life. She came back and she said, I'm a different person. I'm going to become more authentic I'm going to speak with an accent. I'm going to say my name, Tatiana Rivera, like this when people ask me who I am in the office. And she's a different, like you see her online now, and you know, she is a huge change maker and catalyst for other Latinas in the world in terms of really owning your background, your heritage, where you come from, and showing up in your full Latinidad. And she even says that it was her mentor at the time, an Afro-Latina, me, who changed her perspective. And I didn't know that I had that power. Certainly I have people that come to me and ask me to be their mentor, or that I sponsor in one way, shape, or another, but I never really always know how I'm impacting people. And it's through stories like that that I think are so important. And I think all of you guys in the room will share those opportunities as well, as you are climbing up your professional ladders and you're achieving success, that you're bringing others along, and that you're showing up confidently, but you're letting them know that they can too. And I think that was one of those aha moments for me, I think, in the importance of showing up authentically, and not being scared or defined by what the corporate norms are and the expectations are.
That's beautiful. I love that you did that for Tatiana. Sometimes we need a little nudge, we need a mentor, we need someone to say, it's okay, you can come out, I did. It's okay, you can be Latina, you can be yourself. We can still be successful and look like this.
Yes.
We have some amazing speakers that, have touched this stage, including Ximena and Ámaly, that have had a lot of experience and transition periods within their careers. We've also had a lot of people go through the Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers programs. Do we have any alumni from that program in the room today? I can barely see, but I see some hands. Fantastic. The Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers program that we have is a leadership development program, and those opportunities are going to be opening up this October. But that program really helps people understand their history, their culture, their family. And it makes them understand that they are Latina, Latinx, and Latino enough. We have so many people approach our conversations and programs that say, oh, I wasn't sure about going to the Latina Summit because I don't speak Spanish. I don't want to feel left out. This is going to be super uncomfortable. Like, we don't speak Spanish here, right? Not on stage completely. We don't want to make people feel left out. We want to make sure that we're sharing these conversations and experiences to bring anyone in, even if they're third, fourth, fifth generation Latinos, they are Latino enough, especially for our organization. And Ximena, I want you to share with us a little bit about how the individuals in the room, but most importantly, how men can be better allies for women, for the LGBTQ community. What can they strategically and intentionally do to help out your community?
Well, don't make comments like the woman that made the comment to Ámaly. That's a don't. Get acquainted with what microaggressions are. provide the open, welcoming, belonging type of space that made it comfortable for men to be there. You know, bring your Latino friends, bring your LGBT friends with you as well. Make it comfortable. Have a conversation. And, you know, if you don't know something, I guess come out and say, you know, this is coming out of ignorance, because it probably is, but I want to know more. If a company has employees resource groups, see how you can join. Join the conversation. Join any conversation, whether within your company or outside. But what you want to do is create that space. Create that space. Sponsor somebody. If you're an executive, you know, sponsor that Latina LGBT person. Just, it's about creating that space and making sure, you know, make space and maybe go back. You don't have to be always right there. Just create the space for that, that new up-and-coming LGBT Latina person.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. How about you, Ámaly? How can an ally or a man, especially in your very white male-dominated organization, how have they supported you, or what have they done for you to make sure that they create space for you?
Well, so many ways. I feel humbled and lucky, and I know sometimes we're told not to say we're humbled because, like, we did it. You know, we created the success ourselves through hard work. I mean, Latinos work hard, and I attest to that. And so I think, you know, I always have this excellence, you know, sort of mentality in my performance and the things that I do, but you know, we don't succeed without others being there to support you, right? So yes, I talked about my mom, and she's a strong pillar for me, my family, my husband, my kids, tremendous pillar for me. But at work, you know, I have like what I call my board, you know, of, you know, advisors, you know, people that I tap into. Sometimes I don't even know are doing really amazing things for me. And I've been lucky to have those individuals throughout my entire career. I can name them. There's about like 5 sponsors, and I kind of equate sponsors with allies a little bit. You know, I think, you know, sponsors are, as you all I'm sure know in the room, are those individuals that sometimes speak on your behalf when you're not in the room. And they're the ones that are helping you get promoted or get, you know, that new opportunity. And so I've had those situations show up, and sometimes I've had them show up where I've seen it happen. So one of my first, so I stepped into insurance, and you know, I was doing client rep work, supporting client executives within the organization. And this one client executive that I worked with, a white man, decided to move on to another role. He had a book of business. I was doing all the hard work supporting his book of business, you know, the behind the scenes stuff. But I knew the clients. And I, you know, would go to meetings with him, and so he said, I'm moving on, but I want to hand my book of business to you. And now I've been in this role for about 1.5 years, okay? I'm still kind of new, you know, entry-level position. This doesn't happen, you know, to someone that looks like me, and this doesn't happen to someone who is as junior as I was. And he handed me his book of business, and he said, I want you to do it. And I said, are you sure they're going to allow this? He's like, of course they are, because I'm a white man and I can do that. But, you know, and I didn't even, first of all, I didn't think I could do the job, you know. That was, you know, and I think a lot of, again, my career has been someone saying, you got this, and there's a safety net. I'm here, I'm not going away, but you have other folks that will be there for you as well. And anyway, I took that, and that position actually opened the door to so many other amazing things that I did in the company. But like, to take a chance like that, to take a risk like that on someone like me, I think that's huge. That speaks volumes. We're still friends today, Michael and Parado. And, you know, and then that led to other doors opening. You know, I got that book of business that led me to the private equity and M&A space that I had no clue about, and people were watching me, and they were talking to me, and they were saying, maybe you should be here, and I would get recruited into these new areas of the organization. So I did that for 6 years. And then, you know, I went on maternity leave, and I thought people are not going to expect me to come back, because most women, this is my second kid, the typical thing that women would do at that time, and I'm a lot older than you guys all think, but the typical thing was you would have your first, second kid, and then you'd stay home. And so that was the expectation, but no one really knew this. I was the breadwinner in my household, and so I was coming back to work. And what was happening on the other side, I was afraid that I wasn't gonna have a job to come back to after my second kid. And what I didn't know is that another white senior leader in the organization, a male, was actually curating a role for me to come back to. And I got this call. I was still on maternity leave. It was like maybe a couple weeks before I came back. And I thought, this is it. I'm getting canned, honey. I was in the car with my family, the baby sitting next to me. And I was like, shh, everybody be quiet, this is gonna happen, And I'm like, this could be a good thing or a bad thing, And everybody's like sitting there like pins and needles. And they basically said, we can't wait to have you back. I'm gonna start crying. And we have a new opportunity for you. We want you to lead this, this marketing team, which focus really on driving RFPs and proposals. And I was like, really? Me? Again, like, do you think I could do this? And they were like, yeah, you've been doing it this whole time. And I was also winning a lot of client engagement opportunities, and so they saw value in that, and they saw value in me. And again, not seeing too many people that look like me, it was huge to have that experience. But those situations have happened along my career, and so I've been also able to do that with others, through my work in the resource group community, leading resource group communities within the organization, but also, as I've encountered mentoring, bringing folks into, through the hiring process, bringing folks into the organization, and really honing in on diverse talent. That's been my MO. Not to say that, talent comes in, all shapes, colors, sizes, et cetera, but really focusing in on diverse talent, and ideally folks that are marginalized, that are not going to get that opportunity to own a book of business or that promotion, and opening the doors for them, and so I'm excited to actually say that right now we're working on this initiative. It's called Equity Equals Possibility. And it's a commercial initiative that I introduced to the executive committee about a year ago through, so I also chair our Race Advisory Council, which was introduced as one of our commitments post-George Floyd. And the white leaders in our executive committee all were like, yeah, this is a no-brainer, it's gonna make us money, yeah, let's do this. But what they didn't realize was that the impetus of this initiative is really to create greater access to marginalized communities, diverse communities. And so next month, we're actually gonna have our commemorative inaugural launch of the initiative. It's gonna be focused on, we're gonna look at different demographics, but we're gonna start with the Black business community and creating, as you said, space. Where we'll invite 100 senior executives that are within our ecosystem, but that don't normally work with us, to share insights, to create a network and a space. We'll have some of our senior white leaders there in the room, but they're gonna be the minority for the first time in a conference that's related to our organization, our industry. Like, that's the first of its kind in our industry, ever. So I feel really proud to have been able to usher that in to the organization, but to have a Black Leaders Symposium, that's what it's called. Like, it's very controversial in the insurance industry and the risk management industry, but I think it's a step forward in terms of, yes, I've had allies support me and they've approved this initiative, but I also am trying to open the door for others, who are marginalized, on the fringe, but need to be a part of the fold, because we all know that diverse organizations lead to better performance, right? And we know that certainly there's work to be done, right? At the leadership level especially, we need to see a change in greater representation of diversity. But the data is that, diverse leader, executive committees and leadership teams deliver 29-30% increased performance. And so, like, the business case is a no-brainer, you know? And so that's, I think, back to your point around creating spaces, that's how we should be functioning. I think more of that needs to happen.
That's beautiful. I love that you are both creating spaces for other women, underrepresented groups, women of color, and taking up as much space as possible. We do have time for one question, perhaps two. So I'm going to have my colleagues right on the sides of the rooms show you that they have a microphone. Does anybody want to ask Ámaly or Ximena a question? I see some hands going up. So if you can make your way to the outsides of the room, Shanae will walk the microphone right over. There you are.
Hi, y'all. Diana Cañas. I'm from Nike. Quick question. How did you get leadership to listen to you? Because sometimes I feel like it falls onto deaf ears. Like, how did you get them to be allies?
How about you, Ximena?
You know, I'm lucky and privileged to work at a company that they sort of listen to you. And you have to find that, and if they don't, find those people that will. And, you know, I've been with a company, like I said, 25 years, and for me it has been about timing and who you go talk to first. And how I see that is you gotta plant that little seed. And it's not the one time that you have a conversation, it's the two, it's the three, it's the four, and you have it. It's sort of you're doing your outreach program, right? Yeah. You're doing your advocacy work. So you find your allies that way as well. So you gotta be consistent in how you're saying what you're saying so that your program or your idea sort of is, you get the buy-in from others. So, and it's a constant work. So you got to find those people that are willing to listen to it. And if there really isn't, like I said, just have those conversations. Provide the data.
Yes. Data speaks.
Can I add to
Please
that?
do.
So I think it depends on where you are in your career trajectory. I think early on in my career trajectory, I was always thinking about the next. And so I would, to your point, make connections with people and say, hey, if you're thinking about, you know, something in your space, here are my strengths and here are some things for you to think about me. And so that would not always open up an opportunity in that moment, but it had people thinking about me. And it also created conversations on opening doors in other places that I probably wouldn't have thought about. So that's one way. I think the resource group community is something to be said about the importance about that space, because I was able to participate in the resource group community and also lead in the resource group community. I've been able to show up probably in a more intentional, strategic way than I would have if I was just doing my day-to-day job. And I also created a network of people, friends that are still friends today, but I wouldn't have met Sid. I wouldn't have even heard of Sid if it wasn't for my resource group work, or maybe I would have, but, and that opened up other opportunities, right? I mean, I would put up events that were commercially driven, but that would allow me to bring in speakers like Sid or other senior leaders that were outside of the company. And so my internal leaders were paying attention. Like, something's going on with this young lady, you know, that she's driving these really great conversations, she's creating these great spaces, she's also creating stickiness for our colleagues in our organization, particularly diverse colleagues. And so I think resource group communities are also really important. And then the third thing is relationships, establishing relationships with some of these senior execs outside of the meeting, you know, making sure that they're getting to know who you are as a person so that when you are in the meeting, they become your advocate in that place, or even behind the scenes before you enter the room. So I think all those things are really critical at each stage of your career.
That's beautiful. Thank you for your question. We're also going to have time after this session. We're doing a walk and talk. I'm leading it. Hopefully you ladies can join us for the walk and talk as well. But you'll have an opportunity to grab them and talk to them a little bit more about their experience. I want to thank Ximena and Ámaly for being so open, being so transparent, being here, being so committed to your organizations, bringing all of this information back to your organizations, and making sure that you create space for the other Latinas that are watching you, because you are role models to them, especially to your children, of course, and we've got Zoe here that can attest to that. But thank you all so much. I want to give them a round of applause.